At some point, there really has needed to be a podcast episode here with a regular Aussie guy. And greatly to his credit, our guest today has a really good level of personal self-responsibility that he calls himself to. And yeah, he's a great guide, coach, trainer for men. And his name is Steve McNamara, and he kind of is similar to those of you outside of Australia who would know of Steve Irwin in that if you, not the same at all, actually, but from the outside looking in, if you have a look at his photos on social media, he's always outside. He is fishing. He is in the outback. He is enjoying football, watching football. He's catching huge pythons. He is someone that a lot of regular Aussie blokes would really relate to. But he has also gone quite deep into his own inner work, into emotional healing, and is now at a place and has been for some time where he can guide men in a way that they really understand. And because I know that there are men independently listening to this podcast, but I believe that most of them are listening in the company of their partner, quite heavily encouraged perhaps by a woman in their life. And so I want to make sure that I really am bringing in a wide variety of people to speak from their life experiences and their professional experience. And so I do hope that there are a lot of Aussie guys who will relate to this episode and get a lot out of it. And so I hope you enjoy this episode today with Steve McNamara. Welcome to this provocative and heartfelt podcast where patriarchy is defined as a paradigm that both men and women uphold in different ways. Here you get to listen in on genuine conversations between leaders from around the world to discover more mutual respect and less division, as well as more pleasure and love in your life. My name is Devashi Shakti, and you are warmly welcome to be part of these Beyond Patriarchal Sex conversations. All right, Steve McNamara. Performance coach. I think you were already doing that for quite a while before I met you, whenever that was, a while ago now, several years ago.
Yeah, I've been doing this for over a decade now, so I think we met probably, I'd say probably 7 or 8 years ago, I reckon, maybe
Wow, has it
seven,
been that long?
six.
Wow.
Time
Yes.
isn't real, as we found out before this podcast recording.
True, true. I was in a little time warp, everyone. And so the reason I've invited Steve is because I know that I think you maybe still work with everyone, but I think you have a specialty of focusing on men and supporting men in both their inner and outer success, if we say it like that. And I know you well enough to know that you are such a grounded and stable energy, and you've so genuinely dived into the inner healing realm that is so necessary and important for men to be exploring at this point. And you guide them through it, you assist them through it. So let me start by asking you, how does it feel to be invited to speak on the Beyond Patriarchal Sex podcast for you?
Because it's you, it felt really, it was like, oh yeah, because I like trust my gut on these things too. And I'm like, oh yeah, this is a yes. And I'm like, there could be an edge in it for me. So I'm like, well, that's a double yes. So no, it feels good to be on here. And there is a part of me that is open to learn because again, even though we've known each other for a while and everything like that, I think there's a part of me that's definitely open. And one thing I've loved about the journey is, yeah, I like to see myself as specializing in helping men, but I've learned a lot from the women that I've had as either clients or mentors as well. So I think this will just be the next sort of evolution of a conversation and a deep dive into all of that. Yeah.
Yeah, great. And I mean, what are we doing if we're not open to learn? Hey? And I mean, I'm sure you know that as someone who's very invested in your own personal growth. And if I think of, the older worlds that have come before ours, in the sort of classic years of the Stoics and before, men have always had female advisors. Maybe even the most successful and prestigious men have had that throughout the ages. And so, yeah, I mean, select women, maybe not everyone.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Select ones, yes. Yes, I can't say that the women in my 20s that I had in my life were good advisors, but that's on me. But yes, definitely as life's gone on, I've had some amazing women around me, and I've got an amazing wife right now, if anything. And just to speak to that a little bit, um, she's so on point so often that why wouldn't I listen to her when she's connected? Because sometimes, and I think this is very typical of men without it in a bucket because it's women too, but a lot of men are very mind thinking first and the mind is very strong. So I always turn to my wife if I'm like, okay, well, I've got my gut feel. What do you feel? And
Yeah,
sometimes she confirms what I already know, but sometimes it's just an instant hit. And the more I've just trusted that intuitive nudge that she has, is good at that. And again, that comes with the capacity and depth that she's got and she's gone through with the healing, and same with me. Um, so
totally. I
I
mean,
say all men should trust the women in their life.
yes, yes, thank you for naming that. And I mean, why not receive or be open to input from the best of the male psyche and female psyche for integration? I mean, why not if you can? And I noticed something, it was just a small moment, but you said when you were reflecting on the women in your 20s, and you said, but that's on me. And that is such a beautiful attitude that I've consistently noticed in you, Steve, where you are the kind of man, if it's okay that I say this, you're into radical self-responsibility. Yes?
It's the first step in any healing journey, whatever, of taking your power back. It is the pivotal foundational piece with any client, men and women that come into my world, is radical responsibility. And I need to embody that. And I've needed to embody that because I can guarantee you for a lot of my life, I was not the embodiment of that. I was everything but.
Right.
And yeah, I was the embodiment of a really good victim.
Right. And firstly, I mean, it's totally true. It's for everyone. It's for humans, self-responsibility.
Yeah.
And I'm very much known for guiding women in that way in the work I do with women, but we're probably focusing a little bit more on the male psyche and the experience of developing as a man today, having you here. Um, yes. And so maybe are you open to telling us a little bit about where you came from? You said you were a really good victim. How was it for you to encounter maybe initially, right? Initially the it seems like empowerment 101, truly. Although it sounds like from all the noise on the internet, it sounds like a lot of people have missed that empowerment 101 teaching of, uh, you know, 100% self-responsibility leads to your empowerment. And you know what, as a woman looking at some of what guys are struggling with out there, and this is like a certain niche, but wow, it seems to be quite a large population too. It's like, what if they could benefit a little more from Jocko and Goggins than Tate? That was a little chat I had with myself the other
That's a, that would have been an interesting self-reflection or chat or observation. Yeah, but it's so interesting to reflect on my past, let's say, because it's interesting from the place of me. I did have parts of my life where I took responsibility, like my career, and this is very typical with men. It's like with someone else's business, as I was doing a role in that, I was take ownership of my role in that because there was an element of significance. But aside from that piece, any other part of my life, like I was like partying, taking drugs, like could never hold a solid relationship for long and all them sorts of things. I was always quick to blame from myself, like it's because of that doesn't work, because of that, because of them, because of that. And that was my thing. And it's so interesting to reflect on I was like, I had two like different, like I had an orphan part that go to work and another
Yeah.
orphan part that'd be outside of life. And then deep down, I'm on this inner conflict for years and years. And I'm glad I had that sort of like perspective, and I sort of knew it back then, but didn't know what to do about it. Like I knew that I was playing victim because I felt ashamed, and I was like running on shame. And then I'd like go into my career and my work and do a great job. I had a lot of responsibility, take back my power in that realm, but then feel ashamed out of it. It's just like this. It was a vicious cycle for many years. And again, I see it for what it is now. It served me so well to give that depth now that I've gone on that healing journey for so many years, to be able to come back to radical responsibility across the board. Like literally, if you want to get your life together, well, you've got to take responsibility for every part that is current, present right now. The good, the not so good, and the really crappy
Mm.
stuff. Like
Yes.
without doing that, like you say, it's 101. It should be the first step. It's the fundamental, foundational, and what I see in the work I do with others, and even in my own journey, when you do that, it covers so many bases anyway. It literally, there can be your healing journey right there. Just keep taking responsibility.
Yeah.
Don't worry about all the other constructs and everything. If you just simplify it, all right, each and every day, I'm going to take responsibility for my decisions, my choices, be intentional. That will change your life. It will. It'll transform
I
so much of your life.
totally agree with that because if that was someone's primary intention and focus, reality would align itself in the most optimal way in front of someone if they were really committed to that as their outlook, as their approach, for sure. For sure. Yes. And so you mentioned a little bit of, oh, this could be edgy, this kind of theme. Um, uh, can we go there? What comes up when you consider the feeling around this to be a little edgy?
No, I think anything. It's like a little edgy would be okay. I look at the title of the podcast straight away. I've got my constructs and everything that comes up. And number one, I know you and I know some of the work you do without knowing behind closed doors. But it's very deep. It's very transformational. It's very body orientated and everything like that. Um, and just knowing that, I'm like, okay, there could be something in this for me. Just like my body's like, okay, there could be an edge because when I listened to the an earlier podcast of the description, I'm glad I listened to that because it took me beyond what the title of the podcast is. For me, I think a patriarchal, it doesn't take me anywhere really. But then you throw beyond it and then sex on the end of it, and it's like, oh, what could this be? But again, I loved how you explained it with the analogy of the elephant in the room. I think that was really, really powerful, really helpful for me too. But again, I think in any of this sort of thing, being interviewed by someone, um, there's an edge there because there's an unknown. And I think with me, the way I operate these days is like, I think we touched on being open to learn earlier. That was the opposite of me back in the day. I was very rigid, very not, and it had me limited. It, growth was not one of my things. Aside from my career, where I sort of forced to grow, if I wanted to keep my roles of significance and be in charge and be the boss and that, I sort of forced to grow, but I was still very rigid, and especially in life. So I think that's probably the edge for me too, where I'm just open to learn, and it may be just comfortable. I don't know, and I'm fine with that.
And what you just named there about that part in yourself and many guys, right? Like a this idea that you should have so much certainty that it's a detriment if you have openness to learn. Like maybe it's like admitting fault, like you somehow don't have it. And to go through life with that kind of closure or rigidity, as you said, just seems like it's missing so many opportunities for growth.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm very grateful for my wife on this journey because she's very flamboyant and very spontaneous. And and it hasn't been an easy journey reflecting in a relationship where I've come from rigidity and I've come from getting a lot of success in my life being that way. It's like my logical mind is like, why would I want to change that? It's kept me safe, which is fine, which is okay. But it also, my whole life direction had changed when I got into a relationship. My whole life direction changed when I changed careers and went from like being a supervisor, project manager in the mining game and construction of that into here I come as an entrepreneur into the coaching world and the healing world and doing sales and events and all this stuff. So they had, I, if I had stayed on that rigid path, it would have limited me from so much, not just growth in general, but from so much opportunity, so much like abundance, you could say, really.
Yeah,
And
and
again, it hasn't been yeah,
abundance in
yeah,
all its forms, right? Including money.
yeah,
Yes. Yes.
yep.
And when you paint this picture of how you used to be, I mean, I believe you, but it's actually hard for me to imagine because you are so solidly established in who you are and where you are now. And I mean, my perception from the outside in is that you're so solid in your, committed marriage, monogamous relationship, and just such a like steady, trustworthy kind of guy. Like in amongst the men that I have known and met in my life, you definitely stand out as one of those men of trustworthy masculine energy.
Yeah, see, there's my age now. I've got to receive that amazing compliment. Thank you. I do value loyalty very highly, and I think that's one of the things that, again, that's come up a lot in our relationship and my circle of friends. And I have needed to practice that, and it's a good trait I picked up from my dad. But my dad was loyal to his detriment, so I've had to work around that too.
Oh,
There's probably a tangent, a whole other tangent I could go on with that
yeah.
where it played out in my career as well. But I do appreciate that compliment and reflection, and it is something I hold very, very highly. Is that, and again, my circle of friends. I have a small circle of friends for that very reason. It's like, well, I'm loyal to my friends, and we're yeah. That's just a high. You could call it a virtue if you want.
Yeah, it is. It truly is a virtue. Yes, very honorable
Mhm.
virtue. And when I hear you say that about how your dad or how a man can overdo loyalty, it struck me as a parallel with how women can do the same with a different virtue of, the love and the care. So what I'm hearing is that maybe your dad left himself out of being loyal to himself or his health or his well-being. And I see all the time how women do that to their own detriment with their beautiful, loving attention and care turned out, but they're not included in that a lot of the time.
I see this again and again. I've got a lot of contrast from a lot of my clients, even though I predominantly work with men and love that. Some of my women clients, I see that play out time and time again. But what I observed from my dad was, and I knew this back before I went on my own healing journey, and it used to, I probably resented him for it because he was so talented and so driven and so many great characteristics and qualities and everything. But he always worked for, I'll say it, dickheads, but he was so loyal to him. He always got used because he didn't put himself first. And then he got into his 50s, and it wasn't until his 50s that he started to go, okay, how many times am I going to do this? And I've seen in the last 20 years, again, he's a simple man. Like he still doesn't understand the world I'm in, but he's definitely changed from when he started going, okay, I'm going to put myself first. I'm actually going to do that. And I see it in his work and his career, but he just started to do things he loved more often. And again, that was probably after a pretty messy breakup with my mum. It was after stepping away from who he thought was his friends. Stuff we talk about intentionally and doing the work and having a look at. It happened organically for him. And again, he's more grounded and happy than ever. Now he's in his early 70s. And like, it's just been so interesting to observe that. And again, observe it in myself, my own journey, because I literally modeled that and it used to frustrate me. But for my whole 20s, I kept myself in a career in Melbourne and kept myself getting paid unders because I was like, all right, I'm loyal. It's going to change. I'm just going to work harder, and they're going to see me for what I am. I'm going to prove and prove and prove, and nothing would come. And then I changed and I started to realize go to another career, and that evolved to go in the mines where I started getting paid what I thought was my worth. But then I started doing it again until something for me happened. I lost my good mate to suicide, and I just started going, okay, what I'm doing, it's not working. I'm feeling really empty. I've got all this success on the outside. I'm basically doing what my dad did, but I had this big confronting shift, and I just went, what else is there? something my dad didn't do to his 50s or more. But for me, I'm like that, and then put it all aside. And again, it wasn't easy, but I tell you what was easy at the time. It was easy to put it aside. It was easy to go, oh, there's something else other than this life. And again, then decade later, here we are.
Wow, what a great awareness you had that pivoted you onto a different track and accelerated your growth. And I was going to go somewhere else, but I want to follow this thread now that it's here. Um,
Yeah.
this, it seems like, and this is possibly not the kind of guys that you're working with, but just going to the broader collective space for a moment, there seems to be a popular wave, quite incel-like in the sense of men who've maybe taken this learning that you had to maybe the opposite extreme, of putting themselves first in a way where there's no mutuality that they're aiming for anymore with women, is how it appears on the outside. Like the I'm the prize, the men saying that kind of thing, right? It seems like a really immature overcompensation for the level of learning that you were able to perceive and integrate and move forward with in a healthy way. So I just wanted to take this moment to ask you, what would you advise those men who are in that place? Not that they're, I don't know if they're even listening to something like this. Of course they're not, but let's just say it anyway. If you are a woman, I want you to know about the work I do when not speaking on this podcast, which is all about how to live from your embodied womanly presence for your health on all levels, as well as it being a feminine spiritual path in itself. And it has a way of effortlessly unlocking your unique gifts to be a voice for women in the way that you are called to do so. And this happens through a facilitated training called Women's Somatic Sovereignty Certification. It gives you the chance to restore your own female nervous system, which I specialize in, while gaining the skills to be an effective somatic professional supporting women to thrive. Come to one of my free workshops to know more about this. We have a fantastic community of women to learn and to grow with, which has been going strong since 2005. So see the links below this episode for more on certification training.
Oh, what I observe, and let me know if this is some sort of answer with this, is like it's sort of like they actually still don't know what they want is driving that, and they're putting themselves as the most important and deeper down. And if I can put that into the context of how I came into this journey, because I actually was in a space where that was playing out. I was in a men's program where that was sort of the messaging. And I learned probably about 12 months in when I actually owned what my deeper desires were. And what my deeper desires were, what I actually wanted was I wanted a family. Now, at the time, no, I would on the surface, no, no, no. It was all rah rah. It was all a lot of ego, but I was like feeling better in myself. I was confident, like feelings that I didn't have before. And I see a lot of men now go into these spaces where they get some confidence and they get some significance, but then they're detached from their deeper desires because I think that's it, the thing. I'm the king or I'm the whatever. And even in the language a lot of us use in the space, like um, my retreats are called the integrated warrior. The word warrior, I didn't want to use that because at the time I see it in the space, people think warrior, it's like boom, 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 boom. And I even see that in some of the men's work now. And it's like it
Yes.
places the men in some regards as better than, stronger than, tougher than, whatever. And that's like it, if that makes sense.
I see
And
what you're
it's
saying.
like,
It's like a different costume for another performative energy. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Absolutely. And I feel again I can reflect on my own journey. It's like as soon as I acknowledged what I wanted deep down, not only did it show up, but it sort of humbled me too. And it just had me go, okay, cool. That part of me that I've been feeling that I haven't felt, that powerful part, that significance, the spotlight is on me and I like it. I'm like, that's an important part, but it's just a part. It's not, it's not the, and I feel that's where a lot of I'll say men in the space or work in space sort of stops there. That's the thing. That's the prize. And then it's
Mm.
like, well, I am the prize. It's almost like the God complex. It's almost like, well, I'm connected with God. I am God. Or it's like, I'm the man. I am the man. And it's like, I still feel it's like, do I use the word immature? I
Yeah.
probably could use that. I think it's like
Yes.
creating big boys.
That's what it looks like and feels like as a woman observing this, that's for sure. And I even see a lot of guys like really calling on the authoritative voice of religion, which amplifies that character or lack of character or lack of development in a man, with the whole, ruling over the household and the woman being underneath him, and how it's a total misunderstanding of the words, but there's an interpretation a lot of guys are running with, which is, the woman is just like a helpmate. And slave-like is not truly what that actually even means in the Bible. But it's like there's a sense of authority drawing it from patriarchal religion to be like, yes, I have permission from on high to
Mm.
be, stagnant and stuck in my growth is another way of saying it.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring the religion one in there, and it's like the interpretation of all that and how people take it. And again, I see with the big movement because I've been exploring this a bit too, because I've been like talking to a lot more men in America, and
Yeah,
religion and faith is very, very, it's a high value over there compared
yeah,
to what I've had in Australia. And it is interesting. I've found the contrast of what we're talking about here briefly, but I've also found very grounded men who are very wise, and that's how they're interpretive. They have loving families, and it's not about being equal in the relationship or anything like that, but it's like that. I don't know if you want to call it the. It's not. It's the polarity balancing. It's not even or anything. It's like being able to dance between the two. So I've seen that from some men who are very strong in faith, but again, I see it's like another. It's almost like a confirmation when men go into that. There, it's like, yeah, see, this is confirming that I am the boss or in charge or whatever in the house or the household or in my family, and everyone's below me.
yeah.
And again, I use my own relationship as that. My amazing queen, she's super powerful, and there's times where she's the frigging boss, and I just got to step aside. And it doesn't mean I'm a weak man or none of that, but it's like part of what I see that works for us is like I'm here to like reaffirm with her because she's on her own journey to like you've got this. And sometimes if you want to look from the outside, it might look like I'm stepping back and whatever, but I'm it's not from in this disempowering place, if that makes sense. And again, I've needed to do a lot of work around that too, because it is easy, as in the past, easy just to drop into that. It's like, oh, she wants me to lead, let's use that as an example, or I'm always leading, tell what to do, lead, lead, lead. But a lot of my journey has been not feeling good enough or not being seen or not being heard, or when I lead, making mistakes. So I've needed to pull back. So when I go to sort of encourage her to step forward, I still have sometimes that inner voice coming up that, oh, if she's leading or being seen to be leading in a relationship, that's a disempowering thing. I think I've just opened up another tangent there, by the way, too, because it's like, again, I've
Right.
learned so much in my journey, yeah, from like the healing I've needed to do. And a lot of it's played in the relationship.
But Steve,
Yes.
if you didn't grow up like these American guys that you're talking to with a strong religious influence, what was it for you that had you change and grow into the man that you are now? Because I'm hearing that maybe it wasn't your inclination to think all those things from a biblical orientation, but it was something else. So it was maybe the not good enough, not worthy kind of thinking. Is it like that?
Yeah, so much. Like I look at the earlier parts of my journey, so much of it's come from that get away from the pain, or I don't want to feel the deep shame of not being good enough, and like the pattern of taking action and working to prove myself all the time. And again, I'll come back. A pivotal part was acknowledging what my deeper desires were. That was a big part of it because that started to give me this motivated in pleasure. It didn't mean the not good enoughs have gone away. And I tell you, and any men that are listening to this or women out there, it's not about it going away. It's still there and it still needs to be have a voice sometimes, and it definitely shows up in the relationship. But being able to start to see where that was the driving pattern. Am I deciding this because I'm not good enough and I need to do this for Chi, my wife, or for someone else, or even like in my business or anything like that? And this has like been the huge part of my journey. And I feel like it was probably only about 4 years ago when I got deeper into the somatic work that I actually started to address where that was coming from. I had all the awareness in the world and I could catch myself, but the deeper drivers of that not good enough, like I had all the awareness that I always wanted to make my dad proud, wanted to make my mum proud. That was it's sort of surface level, to be honest. But I think about it when I got into the deeper somatic stuff, that not good enough, and that, and processing the deeper emotions like that were with it, the depression, the apathy, that, and I got to feel that stuff. Then I like when I didn't want to take action, when I didn't want to jump on my coaching calls and my trainings, which I love, and needed to actually learn to be with it. That's when I learned about it. That's when I actually got to understand this deeper down. Well, what was I experiencing when I was a little boy when that pattern was rooted in? It's like, well, if I'm not enough, like what use is there? I'm helpless. I'm useless. I'm like, even
Mm.
saying that, I can feel it still. It's like,
Oh, that's such a harsh narrative to have inside, isn't it? Mm. And the reason I asked you that, Steve, is
yep,
like I mean, there's so many different kinds of people all over the world, of course, but if I say in a general sense, yeah, I would say it's true. It's not like a lot of Australian men that I know and have known are coming from a really religious standpoint, but there's typically this much more subtle, because I've related with men that are not from Western culture, from some of the most patriarchal countries and cultures in the world, and the yeah, their approach is very overt. So I would say in Australia it's far more subtle, but there can be this dismissing of the value of the female, or yeah, I don't know how you would describe that as an Australian man. And you are, I don't know, such a great spokesman for Australian men because you're so grounded, you're so
well,
real.
yeah. So it's so interesting. I probably see that because a lot of the men that come to work with me, they may not be grounded in it, but they probably don't fit the bill of being like, I should be in charge, or I'm the boss, or that patriarchal sense. It's like the woman's
Yeah.
just like a worker, or that. Yes, they've had to do some work around it, but they don't believe it. But it's still like they've modeled that, if that makes sense. So
Yeah,
when they
that's
do come to work with me, yeah, they don't like it, but it plays out, and that's something that triggers them. But I will say that a lot of the women that I work with, especially women who are, let's say, building a business and they have a non-supportive partner, that is so prevalent in Aussie men, that she shouldn't be doing the business. He should be in charge. And it is when I hear that, like, especially I need to be neutral. I can't be biased in my coaching, like, and any work and all that sort of stuff. But when I hear that, because of the men stuff, I'm like, ah, I'm like, but it does. It's actually very common, but you probably don't hear about it as much because a lot of Aussie men don't boast about it, or it's not out. It's just in the household. But again, I do see that play out a bit, and um, I'm really hoping one day that men like that, if they understand like what I feel like I've come to understand, when my woman is in her freaking power, anything is possible. I'm going to support that all the way. Like if it's business, if it's going on adventure, if it's doing whatever, it doesn't mean I'm going to agree with it because I don't understand it. I'm going to support it, and that's been a big part of my journey. And I feel like a lot of men are really limiting their own life, their own abundance, if you will, by having that mindset. And they've only modeled it; they're unconscious to it. That's the thing. It's like a lot of them have just modeled it growing up. But if they were able to go, okay, what would happen if I actually, as uncomfortable as it is, let her build that and say, you've got this, versus you shouldn't be doing this, or I'm giving you permission to now, but if it doesn't work, you've got to stop. And that's
Mm.
oh, this makes me cringe. To be honest, it does. But
Thank you for
it is
being
pretty
so
common.
honest. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's really interesting that this is the kind of thing that a lot of the men that you're working with bring to you. And I'm so happy to hear about the cringe inside of you that comes up around that. So you can guide them differently than the programming that they're modeling. And unconsciously, you say, they're not even really aware that they're doing it. And to me, that's the patriarchal context is like, okay, when that becomes a dominant social and political and legal system that is governing so many of our movements in the world and at home, then that's a very oppressive force, actually, and not only for women,
Yeah.
but for men. And so let me know if this is true, but I imagine for you to cross the other side of that bridge in your own experience and to be able to guide these men, it took you getting in touch with your own emotions and being with the complexity of your own emotional charge to be able to appreciate and really see a woman in your life. Please tell us about that.
Yeah, so and this is a huge part of my journey too. I had the whole identity that I am angry, and it was actually I'm an angry mother. That's what it was. That was my identity for a
Oh.
long time because I am highly emotional, and I was so shamed for so many reasons growing up, and even though I suppressed it in my journey, it would always come out, and I was like the volcano prototype. So a big driver for me to go on this journey when I lost my mate to suicide is I didn't grieve as such. It was literally an instant. All right, I literally looked at the sky and said, "Well, okay, if my mate, who I felt was emotionally grounded and supportive of me on my journey, like he was my sort of one I would confide in, like I was a firecracker on the work site, but he was the other supervisor. I'm like, well, if he's just taken his life and he can't handle it, and here I am, this highly volatile thing, I'm like, what am I here for? Like, what am I doing this? That was the key moment. And instead of again grieving them, I'm like, okay, I open to that. I'm like, I like that allow me to go, okay, I actually want to work on this. Actually, there's got to be this may not be who I am, if that makes sense. And again, it probably took me 2 years of like slowly looking at stuff but until I got into the work after that. But when I got into it, my main driver was like, I want to work on this. I heard the term in our NLP, release all your negative emotions. And I'm like, what? I can get rid of all these? And sounded great at the time. And this was pivotal for me. I like this question, and it might take me on a tangent, but it is pivotal when I come to talking about emotions, especially like a prevalent one I see in a lot of men, either anger or sadness. They're the two I see a lot in men, is like the lid on what I call the jar of emotions. But for anger, for me, I heard the term, I did the processes, I was going to all the retreats and doing all that. They were great, but I really attached to that term. All right, release, get rid of. And I was having these like cathartic releases, and I'm like, I've changed, all my anger's gone. And I started to believe that until one day, I remember my brother, and I'm sort of close to my family, and family's family. But my brother at the time, his young bloke was in up here, and he was loving what I was doing online. Like I was very active online and out and about, loving it. And I remember having a phone call with my brother, who was my nephew's dad, of course, and he lost that at me. He's like, I don't want my son around you doing all this stuff online, and it was lots of projections and that. And I remember this to a day because I just got with Chi. She was new, so here I was putting on my best face. I'm not angry anymore. I'm doing the work. I remember screaming into my phone in the car. Chi was there outside screaming at my brother, and I got off that. I'm like, what was that? I'm like, clearly I've got a lot more work to do around this. And then that took me on the journey into the somatic work, into trauma. Wasn't as quick, but that changed my direction because I realized it wasn't as simple as just replacing my emotions, because that was like literally confirming the deep shame that I had deep down, that emotions mean weakness. And emotion means I'm not strong, or I can't handle things and can't control my emotions. All these narratives that I'd identified with for so long. And again, when I start to really work with this energy and emotion, I actually really discovered in time that it's like my superpower. And it is. It's like I'm great at taking massive action. And I'm great at, like, you talk about loyalty and that, I value protection very highly. And I
Mhm.
still know that whether you want to call it my anger or that sacred rage or whatever you want to call it, that's like a weapon for me for a good. And it really has driven a lot of my work, and especially around my retreats with men. That's why I call it the integrated warrior, because sometimes we've got to call on that integrated warrior who can handle his emotions, not control them, handle, very different, can be with them, can tolerate them, but not suppress or push out. No, that's been a huge driver of my journey, and especially to work with other men. And I work with a lot of gentle giants who anger has been their thing. Anger has been the thing, and it's been a fascinating journey. The more I embrace that and learn more about the energy around them and everything, and again done my own healing and experienced the apathies and the helplessnesses and everything it was protecting, everything the anger was protecting. It just gave me more depth to be able to help other men with that, and other women. There's some fiery women out there too, as you would know. that,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. What an authentic
that
guy.
anger's been their thing. So yeah, that's
Yeah. Yeah. So anger's been a thing. It's been your thing. And so what an authentic guide, coach you truly are to support men to let that basically what's maybe by default turned outwards into the world and other people and learn how to harness that because my experience of the feeling and the vibration that we call anger is pure raw energy. It's power. It's pure power and we can have a story around it, but if you go in just to the felt sense sound, feeling, felt sense of it. And we turn it around in not to be angry at ourselves, but to face it and to meet it and to integrate that power back in. That's what I hear that you're doing and you've done for yourself and that you guide. I actually love doing that with women because I feel very comfortable with the power of anger as an ally. It's so creative, and typically women
yeah,
have huge social conditioning to lock it down and to suppress it and repress it or turn it out onto others as well and be volcanic with their rage.
yeah,
But it's even more common that women hold it in and cause sickness and illness in their own body and so
yeah,
many other things. But coming back to the male experience of this, and this what we've named as like a typical immature expression for a man in the world at the moment, the venting that's happening. And I want to say it's so legitimate. The anger itself, the reason that it's there, it's there for a reason. It has intelligence, it has a purpose, right? But there's that extra important alchemical step, isn't it, to learn how to harness the power of it and not just push everyone away with it, you know?
yeah. I learned one of the things I learned early by, you could call it accident or a synchronicity. I was doing a lot of sound healing stuff, and I was really fascinated by sound way back in the day when I heard that, like, sound can help, like, with the emotion and everything like that. And I remember, yeah. Anyway, I was like, I came across, whether it might have been in a book, but I was reading about anger, the actual energy in your field, what it looks like, how it behaves, and at the same time, I was like getting taught that all these um, negative emotions, which I don't use that term anymore, anger is this negative, dense, low vibrational emotion. But then I learned it's like, no, it's actually extremely high. The difference between anger, where our system, our nervous system feels it's unsafe and we can't sort of manage it or be with it, it's chaotic, meaning it gets
Yeah.
projected or it shoots out everywhere. It's not, there's no intention with it because we can't hold it. And I'm not talking hold it to tuck it down, but then when you are able to be able to be better with it, be able to, like, you could say, build a relationship with it, feel it more without it being that, it starts to organize. And then when it starts to organize and they then show the power of intention, and it's like, well, that's your assertive energy. That's your setting boundaries. That's like, let's go smash this job out. Let's go do this. Let's get the thing.
And it's just about it being organized. And I thought it was a fascinating thing for me. And it's like, okay, cool. That makes so much sense within me. It's like when I get triggered and I go into a fight response, anger used to be like the predominant thing. It's a bit different these days, which is interesting. I'm always observing, but it used to be, then it was just unconscious fight response and be like, whatever, yell and scream or
Yeah.
punch something or stamp around or whatever it was, or go scream in a pillow. I was learning stuff, but it was not that organized feeling. It wasn't like, okay, cool. Yeah, I'm like with this, I am triggered about something. Something's crossed my path. Someone's crossed a boundary, or I'm like not happy with myself, or whatever's triggered it. Okay, cool. Like I'm going to be with this. Okay, what would happen if I just stayed with this and it did rise, and I didn't like let it go out and spray it out everywhere? And then again, I've had a lot of support with it when I was actually able to be with it more. It's like the get shit done energy. It's like I was able to have a stronger relationship with my wife. I was able to say no when her stuff would come up, and there's a whole other tangent. And happy to go into it if we've got time, because it's very relevant to how my pattern
Yeah,
of anger
please
used to play out.
go. Yeah. Please know that whether you are a man or a woman or a couple listening in to this podcast, you are welcome to get in touch about private mentoring, where I can personally support you to unlearn patriarchal sex, to establish yourselves together in the beyond, which is the most natural yet evolutionary way of exploring intimacy together, increasing the pleasure, the love, the fulfillment that you get to have as man and woman. Whether you're beginning this journey or whether you're already quite advanced, you're welcome to talk with me on a free connection call to see whether a confidential, private mentoring process is right for you. You can find the connection call links in the show notes.
Yeah, cool. So one of the patterns that I've seen play out in our relationship, and Chi and I did, and I think we've faced so much, and was when we first got in a relationship, I was like, go, 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 back myself at every turn. It served me so well all the time, and she would just follow along. But then she had River, she had a really tough pregnancy, and she was always in her stuff, like always. So that used to trigger her stuff, because me being go, 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 I made some mistakes. I made some decisions around the time that that she perceived as me letting her down or being another man in her life. It was just another man that was making mistakes. And what did I start to do? I didn't want to upset her. I didn't want her to go on these emotional, like, I'll call them pilgrimages into her room for weeks at a time, because that's what it was sometimes. And I'm like, so what I started to do, I started to back off. And by default, I think, or probably started first, I was not trusting myself anymore. And what did that start leading to? Fast forward down the track, we'd done a lot of healing and coming together. She was reflecting that I wasn't leading myself. And then within her, we just had this trauma loop going, or this trauma bonding going, where I wasn't backing myself. She wasn't feeling supported. She was feeling like she'd got this man, another man in her life that had let her down and hurt her, even though all I was doing is like, I just didn't want to see her upset. So then when going back to this assertive energy, learning to be with this anger and everything, I needed to learn how to say no again. When she was in that cycle, and trust myself that, no, I'm not available for the part that we were bonding on when I wasn't leading myself, when I was doubting myself, because that would play into how she would then go into her cycle of all the stuff that she was dealing with was very disempowering for her too. When I started to say no, it was scary. My system was like, no, 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 no. But it was like, no, that's it. It's the same. It's the organized anger energy. It's like, I'm not available for that. I'm not available for that pattern. And again, it's probably there's one thing that I've got from this journey that has changed our whole relationship. Because then what did it do? It allows her to start to see that pattern for her part in it and go to work on that. It wasn't this interlinked bond, if that makes sense.
But following this thread, Steve, about the anger, and I know we need to go really soon, and I'm opening up a rabbit hole right at the end here, but it feels important. I wonder if you've noticed in yourself and the men that you work with a connection of this anger and sex energy, because anger can be the really destructive force that it often is, or it can be the creative power that it can be. And you've mentioned that today, talking about getting shit done and the forward movement energy, this connection of anger and sexuality. So this is something I've met in my own bodies, just purely somatically, and I had no idea that it was going to happen. And I've also held really deep space of sexual spiritual initiation body work for men. And so I know this from witnessing and really being there with a man's experience of this. But I wonder if it's come up for you and the men that you work with. And it's a very surprising place a lot of the time when it arises. It's definitely a deep somatic process. It's not something a cognitive coaching process is typically going to bring out.
Yeah, I think it's like when it comes to sexuality and everything like that, even to take it away from that word with men, because even like going into the work around sexuality with the men and my clients, it seems like that is an afterthought for a lot of them right there, because there's no logical, conceptual, it is a somatic, felt sense thing. And
Mhm.
even getting to converse around that, not really a high, it's rare for my men clients to even want to talk about that stuff,
Oh,
like relation to that. But go to the somatic stuff, what we experience on the retreats, because so much of the retreats I run are body, breath, movement. When that does come up, to then give voice to whatever they're experiencing or give rise to, and how they've seen that play out in the relationship in that context, um, it is, they can start to make a link, if that makes sense. Like for my own part, like I didn't even think about it in this with Chi and I. We're so simple when it comes to intimacy and thinking about sexuality and stuff like that. We look at it in like a power sort of thing. When I'm in my power, the somatic experience, when I'm feeling good within myself, whether it's the sexual intercourse or anything like that, or even just how I feel when we're relating, it's very heightened in me, so to say. It's a very different experience. Um, but yeah, it's an interesting one to talk about with me, because a lot of my clients, till they come to a retreat, they don't want to go there. They don't even want to converse that. And again, it's probably, I look at my own upbringing. She sometimes calls me, what is the word? Especially early on, like I wouldn't go there with it. Like to even converse around anything sexuality and power and energy and what I'd feel like in my body, when we're relating, like for years, that was something of mine. So maybe there's a reflection in the men I've attracted where it hasn't been a thing for them, so to say.
but would you say it's possibly part of the thinking that they should already know and wanting to give the impression that they don't need any help in that department?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, there's like, it's like they keep themselves safe from that. But let's look at what plays out a lot in men as a problem. So many of them addicted to porn, and
Mhm.
making the link to what you're talking about to that. See, a lot of the work I do is focused on addictions, and they
Ah,
even having the label that that's an addiction keeps them from the depth of what you're referring to in like their own sexuality or their own somatic experience in relation to that, and
I see.
educating around the detriment that porn can have. Um, because not really, from what I get from them, they don't get much out of it apart from a dopamine hit. And so
Yes,
they can, I think they're, you're right.
yes, it feeds a dopamine addiction, 100%. And it's also the unofficial sex education, isn't it? And it's a very patriarchal sex education. And that is extremely limiting for
Yep.
actually really relating with a woman and a woman's body, right?
Yep. 100%. Yes, it is. And I can't say I've dived into it so much, but in my 20s, it was a little bit. But again, I think for my own thing, it's probably because I had a massive disconnect, like sexuality, intimacy, relating, all that. Like I had a very big disconnect in my 20s from that. And it was, I look at my upbringing. What did I model? My mum and dad, I don't even think I saw them hug. Like,
Uh,
And the education, like I say, where do we get our education from? Like my mates talking about it, like that's, or in school, what they educated on. And in school, I would say, I don't recall much of it, but it was very patriarchal, if you want to do that. It was,
Mm.
man is the boss of the house, man is this. And I don't know what the language was around it. So, yeah, maybe this is my edge in the conversation too.
Yes, yes. No, I understand that this is not like a specialty that you focus on with the guys, but you've certainly been through your own
Nah,
journey, and maybe are
yeah,
continuing on your own journey, as any honest man would say, because it never ends. This is like an exponential place of evolution, and people typically, the way they experience sex, intimacy, I mean, even just from the maybe it's unmanly to be affectionate, kind of what you were just alluding to then, in that typical modeling of people that aren't comfortable with it themselves. It's just so limited what most people are currently experiencing compared to what's possible. And even those that are world experts at what's possible are still discovering more of what's possible.
yeah. Yeah, and I go back to the whole having intention or being available to learn. And again, again, I've attracted in my beautiful queen, Chaitanya, and the journey she's been on. Like, intimacy has been like an interesting journey for us because, again, she grew up with sexual abuse from her father. And I remember
Yeah.
early on in the relationship, that was, wow, there was lots of challenges with that. But she's also very affectionate. And what did I model? The complete opposite. It's exactly what I modeled. So it's still a journey for both of us. And I think where we're at now, like we've been together like 8 or 9 years now, where we're at in the healing, the self healing, go back to that self responsibility for what it is and not making it mean anything about her journey or my journey interlink. It's like for me, for both of us, we know that that's probably both of our edges still, what we're still growing in a lot. And there's a lot room to grow there. Because it's like, again, we've just come from very different experiences. But the one thing that we have, and if the listeners, I think, in a relationship out there right now who are tuning into this, if you value growth, or if one of you doesn't, you're not aware, you need to value growth with this stuff and growth not with a timeline. And I think that's helped us so much. It's not like we don't have a timeline on this, especially. And when we were able to come to that, and like we know that we've got a lot of room to grow in this. And it's not even to learn, it's just to grow because we don't know what we don't know. And
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like that helps so much.
experience
It's
life.
like we're not attached to it.
Yeah. Steve, I know you've got another call to be on. So I want to, yeah, I mean, the reason I reached out to you in this timing was because I saw your post online around supporting men with emotional processing and to really face what's going on inside of them. And because I know how integrally important that is to the journey of learning how to go beyond patriarchal sex. I wanted to invite you to talk about the inner journey, the psychology for men. So thank you for sharing what you have. I know there's so much more, but we'll leave it there for today. And
Yeah.
I'll put all the links and everything to your work. But if you could just leave us with the service that you typically offer if someone wanted to seek you out.
Yeah, cool. So it definitely depends what they're looking for, but my work really focuses on no matter what you've had in your past, I've got a forward focus. Like I'm really keen on, especially with men, like what are you setting out, accomplish, achieve? I think it's so important for us men to still have that aspect. And then the work, be it shadow work or whatever, it comes up on the journey. So that's why I like the title of performance coaching. You still got to show up. We're in a physical experience. We've got things to do. So that's always a focus. It doesn't matter what modality I'm using, whether it's a somatic work, whether it's a lot of mind top-down approach or anything like that. It always starts with that forward focus because it's easy to come to someone and be aware of your problems and talk about your problems and that. But I want to see my clients win. Simple as that. I want them to see have a full life, like an embodied life. And doesn't matter what service I provide, that's the intent. And again, and that comes from too my own journey. Like I've had coaches where it's like, all right, let's go into your past, 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 and there hasn't been this but like, what are you bringing to life? What are you creating? And I feel like, yeah, that's in a nutshell. That's what I love more men and women. Like I've got some great women clients right now, but more men would be great. It would come and let's build something great. Let's bring something like into the physical. And again, if we need to go through your past stuff, that's my genius zone too.
Yes, yes. Thank you for the very practical and genuine and self-responsible attitude and approach that you bring to your work. I wish there were more men like you and more men like you guiding others. So thank you for being a leader in the community, Steve, and thanks for your time and energy today.
Thank you, and I love this podcast today and this chat. It's been fantastic. So thank you for having me on, and thank you for the compliments.
No problem. Thanks, Steve. Thank you for sharing this episode if it's moved you, and know that saving or sharing it around, it genuinely helps to spread this message and also to attract more interesting speakers to join the Beyond Patriarchal Sex conversations. And there is much more to come, so keep tuning into these weekly episodes so that we can all be part of shifting division into connection for ourselves and for the coming generations.